is God.
Okay, it's recess time. We can withdraw from everything that's on the outer in our lives and turn our attention within. Take a few deep, cleansing breaths and begin the journey towards your center, towards that sacred altar which resides within each of us. Close your eyes if you like to avoid outer distractions and move closer towards the divine spark. When we feel alone, challenged by life, it is easy to forget the truth. The I am presence manifesting as each of us. Moses encountered this when he asked, "Who shall I say has sent me?" God answered, "I am that I am, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, greater than time and space, nearer than your next breath, limitless, eternal, and right here and right now." Allow yourself to bask in this truth. Feel the awe and wonder of God in the silence. In the silence. In your union with the divine, become refreshed, encouraged, and strengthened, ready to do that which is yours to do. Now, as you begin to bring your attention back to the here and now, bring this I am truth back with you to the here and now. I am. God is. Thank you, God. Today's talk is the last in our series based on Emily Cady's book, Lessons in Truth. And I don't think any of the speakers in this series had much to say about Emily Cady herself, so I thought I'd give you a little brief synopsis about her. H. Emily Cady was a true holistic pioneer. Born in 1848, this turn of the century homeopathic physician treated her patients both medically and spiritually. Her approach to healing was simple, clear, and rooted in her own experience. A student of New Thought, teacher Emma Curtis Hopkins, Dr. Cady remained spiritually independent. She was inspired by biblical teachings and influenced by the ideas of Ralph Waldo Emerson. Cady was a contemporary of Emmett Fox, the popular New Thought writer, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founders of the Unity movement, Ernest Holmes, founder of the Church of Religious Science, and other great minds of the New Thought movement. Cady's articles appeared in Unity magazine and Progress magazine. Her writings continue to instruct and inspire seekers of spiritual truth and the Christ-centered life today and into the next century. Today's talk is titled, Where is God? And it's based on some of her teachings. Before we get into the really nitty-gritty part, I thought I'd kind of lighten it up a little bit with a joke. A corny joke. A couple had two mischievous little boys, ages 8 and 10. At their wits' end, the parents contacted a clergyman who had been successful with rehabilitating bad children in the past. The clergyman asked to see the boys individually. The 8-year-old was sent to meet with him first. The clergyman sat the boy down and asked him sternly, "Where is God?" The boy made no response. So the clergyman repeated the question in an even sterner tone. "Where is God?" Again, the boy made no attempt to answer, so the clergyman raised his voice even more and shook his finger at the boy's face and said, "Where is God?" At that, the boy bolted from the room, ran directly home, and slammed himself in his closet. His older brother followed him into the closet and asked what happened. The younger brother replied, "We are in big trouble this time. God is missing, and they think we did it." We teach that there are many paths to spiritual understanding. This means all of them have merit. In her book, Emily Cady described 3 people who saw the world through a fence. The first looked through a small hole in the fence and exclaimed, "I can see the world. There are trees and houses." The second, looking through a larger hole, said, "No, the world is larger. I can see houses, trees, and a river." The third, peering through an even larger opening, affirmed, "No, you're both wrong. I can see trees, houses, a river, plus birds, people, and the sky." The point is, we are limited by our perspective. In our pursuit of spiritual truth, our views change as we grow to higher understanding. God is limitless. We cannot confine God to our limited vision and through our fence hole. We know that spiritual healing works, but not always in the way we want it to. We are attached to an outcome that is limited by our ego-driven perspective. Those of us who have experienced healing know the power of spirit to heal. When prayer for healing doesn't seem to work, we question ourselves. Is this power fickle? Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Well, I think prayer always works, just not always as I want it to. This is me attaching to an outcome, which my ego desires, but it may not be the best. I forget to trust that all prayer is answered, just not in the way I might conceive. We can apply this knowledge to many things. First, by reminding ourselves that we cannot place limits on God, nor can we say, "This is the only way." When I first became acquainted with unity, I saw people who seemed to have found something that satisfied their desire for spiritual knowledge. It wasn't as if they knew it all. It was more like, I found a way that works for me. Some of them had a glint in their eyes, which I could tell was real. And I wanted to learn more from them, how it worked. I learned that unity was an evolving spiritual approach to life, which doesn't limit itself to only one path. It found truth in many spiritual philosophies. None have all of it, because there is no end to truth, just as there is no end to God. The Fillmores called it practical Christianity, taking from Christian teachings the things which can be proven and which work. They borrowed from many other spiritual paths, things that also work, such as meditation from Eastern religious practices. Not that meditation hasn't been involved with Christianity, but it hasn't been at the forefront as much. Unity is transcendent. That means it seeks the golden nuggets of truth found in all religions, and we overlook the minor superficial differences and focus on those things we have in common. Throughout human history, great suffering is due to intolerance. Wars have been fought over trivial things. The early Christian church first divided over whether you had to be Jewish or not first. And then later on you had the separation between the Eastern and Western branches of Christianity. And then that was followed by the Protestant Reformation. And it seems like each time there are those who find ways to divide. And the wonder of it all is that many of the basic truths have survived all this. And they're still with us. Much of what divides us today is rooted in this same intolerance. How to perform rituals and interpret Scripture. There are churches which say everything we need is found in the Bible. And this is saying that God can be limited by a book, written, rewritten, translated countless times, and editorialized to support certain points of view, and then becoming intolerant of everyone else. Look around the spiritual community. We can find many differences: age, gender, political philosophy, you name it. We see people on various levels of spiritual growth. Some like chocolate and others like vanilla ice cream. We can choose to focus on the greater truth. We are all children of the same God, equally loved and cherished. We have so much more in common than our superficial differences. Each of us has access to that same unlimited power, the power which Jesus referred to when he said, "Greater things than these shall you do also." We cannot use this power when our eyes are focused on a narrow, limited view, just as the ones peering through the fence. They saw only what the opening allowed them to see. For them, what they saw was the truth, but merely a part of it. None saw all of it. Indeed, no one can see the entirety of truth in this earthly realm. When we focused on that which is the underlying truth, that we are each an individual part of the whole of God, we cannot fail in our undertakings. We can actually change the world by bringing peace, tolerance, and love right here and right now. Not only by right thinking, but by being examples of tolerance and forgiveness. We are constantly bombarded by extreme, unforgiving viewpoints. It's almost as if we want to return to a more primitive time, a time when people existed in small bands or tribes. They were fearful and suspicious of others. And when they came in contact with them, they often resorted to violence. When different religions and sects were started, they found certain parts of truth, but were limited by the size of their hole in their fence. Most were also intolerant of any other way. Now, some may find comfort in these limited views. Perhaps that's where they are in their spiritual journey. Instead of judging them, we can bless them and know that the same spark of the divine is in them as it is in us. That's a tough one. That means we should be able to see that same spark in the likes of Kim Jong-un and many other notable people in the news today. But it's there. It's just hard to see. Have you ever been in the presence of someone who radiates peace, calmness and serenity. Such people draw others to them. And what is wrong with the idea of compromise anyway? The personal aspect of God as Father, Mother, is forgiving and loving in spite of our shortcomings. We can apply this aspect to our world and become healers. Not just healers of physical sickness, but healers of spiritual sickness. Instead of looking for the differences in the world, we can affirm the good. It's there, and when we seek after it, we see more and more of it. L.U.T also described another point in her book, the idea that God is principle or the underlying law by which everything exists. This aspect of the divine sets the stage for the universe and doesn't interfere with what's going on a daily level. The other aspect of God is a loving, caring father, mother who is nearby and wants to help and console his children. This is another through the fence hole viewpoint, which doesn't let the viewer see everything. It is another human attempt to limit the unlimitable. There can be no limitation on the infinite. God is both personal and principle. The laws which govern the physical universe and much, much more. And the God we turn to for nurturing, love, forgiveness, healing, and encouragement. Do not be discouraged if you fall short of achieving all of these things. Just continue. Keep plugging. Even Jesus showed his human side when he stood silent before his accusers, for instance. He also had doubts when he asked, "Father, why have you forsaken me?" But Jesus emerged triumphant after his crossing out of error and showed us that we cannot be limited by anything. If we remember that the indwelling Christ will never fail us, we can, each of us, become radiating centers of peace. And that's exactly what this world needs. I'd like to also quote one other Katie. It's sort of a prayer. It says, if you fully recognize that the God that dwells in you dwells in all men, you know that each one's own Lord, the Christ within each one, will make no mistake. The greatest help that you can give to any man is to tell him silently, whenever you think of him, the Holy Spirit lives within you. He cares for you, is working in you that which he would have you do, and is manifesting himself through you. Then let him alone. Be at perfect rest about him, and the result will be infinitely better than you could have asked. Keep ever in mind that each living person in all God's universe is a radiating center of the same perfect one, some radiating more and some less, according to the awakened consciousness of the individual. If you have become conscious of this radiation in yourself, keep your thoughts centered right there, and the Spirit of the living God will radiate from you in all directions with mighty power, doing without noise or words a great work in lifting others up. So we can be examples for this community to begin with of love and forgiveness and acceptance. And through this, we can see new faces come through those doors who will be attracted to this acceptance. And in that respect, it's sort of an obligation of each of us to try to do that. Thank you.